What's happening, guys? Welcome to Slip the Jab Boxing. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Let's get into it. Right, so Anthony Joshua's rebuild. I mean, it's been terrible so far, if we're completely honest. And I'm not just talking about the performances. I'm talking about the whole package. The direction of his career, the opponents, the confusion about opponents, all sorts of things. I mean, if we start off with the training situation, when Anthony Joshua lost to Usyk the first time, he obviously split with Robert McCracken and then joined up with Robert Garcia. Now, that didn't last a very long time. He obviously lost to Usyk again and then moved on to start training with Derek James. He's always spoken very highly of Derek James and spoken of wanting to do what his trainers set him out there to do. But, I mean, his performances haven't looked great. But you've got to give him time to bed in with Derek James, for Derek James to kind of teach him all the things he wants him to do and for them to implement that together. I'm not unrealistic, so I understand that has to happen within time. However, recently there's been talk of him training with Ben Davison. Now, I doubt that it's a thing where he's split with Derek James and joined Ben Davison full time, but I still question, why are you training with Ben Davison? Surely you should be putting all of your energy and time into being trained by Derek James and learning from him. I understand that he's in America, but really that's where all of his focus should be. Anthony Joshua's focus, that is. Learning from Derek James. AJ's already been in a situation where he kind of had two head trainers when he had Robert McCracken and Angel Fernandez. And for whatever reason, that setup obviously didn't work. AJ felt the need to change it 2 times. As well as that, AJ's quite an overthinker. When he's in the ring, he's quite hesitant before he moves. If someone's an overthinker, it's better to give them one clear, concise message from one source rather than them having information from various sources and then they've got methods to pick from. So, for example, he could be in the ring and he's dealing with an opponent and he's remembering what Ben Davison has told him to do, he's remembering what Derek James has told him to do, and before he knows, he's eating a jab in the face. Because he's not following one person's direction, it can make you hesitant, it can make you less free-flowing, if that's the right way to put it. So that's something I'm looking at and questioning, because I'm just wondering why. Why would you be training with Ben Davison? Moving on from that, the fights of 2023. So originally, when this comeback trail started, AJ told us he was in it for the money, fair enough. And there would be 3 fights. Him and Eddie Hearn told us there'd be 3 fights in 2023. Like a comeback opponent for the first fight, a little bit of a step up for the second fight, and then a big boy like a Wilder or a Fury in December towards the end of the year. Now, that has changed quite a few times. After his fight with Jermaine Franklin, AJ randomly put out a post saying that he wouldn't be fighting in the middle of the year anymore. He would just be waiting until the end of the year in December because there was big things at hand, big plans at play. So it turned out that what that was Deontay Wilder, which would be financed by the Saudis at the end of the year. And it was actually, apparently, the Saudis that were saying that they would prefer Anthony Joshua didn't fight. So, it was disappointing to hear we'd have one less AJ fight, but if he was going to go about it that he was going to go straight into a Wilder fight, okay, we're here to watch it. But then after that, he then came out and said he'd be fighting again. Dillian Wright was the opponent, but obviously he went through his own issues and in came Robert Helenius. He fought Robert Helenius, won, didn't look good, and then all of the talk before the Helenius fight was Wilder, 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 Wilder. After the fight, it was completely different. The Wilder fight just went quiet. In the post-fight interview, AJ didn't sound too interested in it. And since he's had his fight with Helenius, Eddie Hearn hasn't really verbally pursued the Deontay Wilder fight. When Eddie Hearn is hungry for a fight, he really pushes it through boxing media, giving interviews to Boxing Social and IFL and such. He'll really apply the pressure when he can. So we haven't been given a definitive reason as to why the Wilder fight isn't happening, but it's somewhat looking like it's because the Saudis don't want to finance it. Now, that to me is a big problem. Why do we need the Saudis to finance this fight? It's not a title fight. It's not a fight of major importance in terms of the actual boxing landscape. It's just a fight that people really want to see. So I'm not sure why we need Saudi money to get this fight over the line. Really, it should be a big fight in England. It should be a big fight in America. So waiting for the Saudi money, just it doesn't sound good. I'm not exactly sure what that's about. It makes it seem as if Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua are basically just mercenaries for the Saudi money. Wherever they can get it, they'll take it. Also, since then, there was talk about Hrgovic. The Hrgovic talk only really started after it looked like the Deontay Wilder fight wouldn't be happening. And I've got to believe that the talk of this fight was more about making us believe that Anthony Joshua still has aspirations to be a champion. Because if the reason is to be believed that he's not taking the the Deontay Wilder fight because the Saudis aren't financing it, then it just further confirms that he's only interested in money and he's just a mercenary at the moment. That's just it. But I believe the Hrgovic chat was more about trying to reinforce, no, AJ's still here to be the best boxer and things like that. But that didn't last very long. The IBF announced their new rankings in which it looks like Hrgovic will take on Otto Wallin next. So Anthony Joshua is out of that conversation. Since then, Eddie Hearn has spoken about having Anthony Joshua feature on the card with Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. Now, that tells me that things must not be right at the moment in terms of finding an opponent. There's no touted opponents currently that are being spoken about. And I don't understand why it's so difficult for Anthony Joshua to follow a simple plan at the moment. It seems like everything is a bit all over the place, clutching at straws wherever possible. It's like Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn have literally no idea how to rebuild Anthony Joshua's career. It's like Eddie Hearn, at the very least, never believed Anthony Joshua would lose. Anthony Joshua has spoken previously about how he thought that he would lose someday. So obviously that is something that's crossed his mind. But Eddie Hearn, it doesn't seem like he really planned for this, because it doesn't seem like they know what they're doing. If you look at Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua when they first linked up, there was a clear plan. Belt collect, make this man a superstar, chase undisputed. And that everything that Anthony Joshua did went in that direction. And you could see there was a clear plan. Everyone was moving in that direction. And although there was a lot more clarity around Anthony Joshua back then, now it just seems like what's he doing all the time? If you look at the difference between Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois, when Daniel Dubois lost to Joe Joyce, Frank Warren followed a clear plan for Daniel. He set him on the path to win the WBA regular belt. His first opponent after losing to Joe Joyce was Bogdan Dinu. After that, he fought Joe Cusimano, Trevor Bryan for the WBA regular title, and Kevin Lorena. All of these fights he won in under 5 rounds. This was about building his confidence, making him feel strong, making him come back. When I'm sure the WBA regular belt was about instilling confidence in Daniel. And although he should have dealt with Kevin Lorena in a much better fashion, the fact that he came through that fight after getting knocked down 3 rounds, you could see that Daniel Dubois took something from that fight mentally. It gave him a bit more belief. And he gave a pretty good performance against Usyk. Now, if you compare that with Anthony Joshua, his comeback show has been awful. They picked a awkward opponent in Jermaine Franklin. They've made promises which it looks like they're not going to keep, because obviously there's no Wilder fight. I don't think that's on the horizon anymore. And it just seems like everything's all over the place. What do you think the problem is? What do you think the issue is with Anthony Joshua in his career right now? Do you think he's mentally checked out and that's why everything just seems so dragged out with him right now? Or do you think there's more going on? Do you think he's actually doing a lot of work behind the scenes and we're still yet to see the best of him? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Take it easy.